To hell with dying, my father would say. These children want Mr. Sweet. Mr. Sweet was a diabetic and an alcoholic and a guitar player, and lived down the road from us on a neglected cotton farm. My older brothers and sisters got the most benefit from Mr. Sweet, for when they were growing up, he had quite a few years ahead of him, and so was capable of being called back from the brink of death any number of times. Whenever the voice of my father reached him as he lay expiring, "To hell with dying, men," my father would say, pushing the wife away from the bedside in tears, although she knew the death was not necessarily the last one unless Mr. Sweet really wanted it to be. These children want Mr. Sweet, and they did want him, for at a signal from father, whoever was the smallest at the time would kiss him all over his wrinkled brown face and tickle him so that he would laugh all down in his stomach, and his mustache, which was long and sort of straggly, would shake like a Spanish moss, and also that collar. Mr. Sweet had been ambitious as a boy, wanted to be a doctor or lawyer or sailor, only to find that black men fare better if they're not, since he could not become none of those things. He turned to fishing as his only earnest career, and playing the guitar as his only claim to doing anything extraordinarily well. His son, the only one that he and his wife Miss Mary had, was shiftless as the day is long, and spent money as if he were trying to see the bottom of the mint, which Mr. Sweet would tell him was the clean brown palm of his hand. Miss Mary loved her baby, however, and worked hard to get him the little necessaries of life, which turned out mostly to be women. Mr. Sweet was a tall, Finnish man with thick, kinky hair going dead white. He was dark brown, his eyes were squinty and sort of bluish, and he chewed brown mullet tobacco, or mule tobacco. He was constantly on the verge of being drunk, for he brewed his own liquor, and was not in the least a stingy sort of man, and was always very melancholy and sad, though frequently he was feeling good. He was dance around the yard with us, usually killing over just as my mother came to see what the commotion was. Towards us children, he was very kind, and had the grace to be shy with us, which is unusual in grown-ups. He had great respect for my mother, for she never held his drunkenness against him, and would let us play with him even if he was about to fall in his fireplace from drink. Although Mr. Sweet would sometimes lose complete or nearly complete control of his head and neck, so that he would loll in his chair, his mind remained strangely acute, and his speech not too affected. His ability to be drunk and sober at the same time made him an ideal playmate, for he was as weak as we were, and we could usually best him in wrestling, all the while keeping a fairly coherent conversation going. We never felt anything of Mr. Sweet's age when we played with him. We loved his wrinkles and would draw some of our brows to be like him. And his white hair was my special treasure, and he knew it, and would never come to visit us just after he had his hair cut, off at the barber shop. Once he came to our house for something, probably to see my father about fertilizer for his crops, because although he never paid the slightest attention to his crops, he liked to know that things would be best to use on them, if he ever did. Anyhow, he had not come with his hair since he had just shaved it off at the barber shop. He wore a huge straw hat to keep off the sun, and also to keep his head away from me. But as soon as I saw him, I ran up and demanded that he take me up and kiss me with his funny beard, which smelled so strongly of tobacco. Looking forward to burying my small fingers into woolly hair, I threw away his hat, only to find he had done something to his hair, that it was no longer there. I let out a squall, which made my mother think that Mr. Sweet had finally dropped me in the well or something, and from that day I've been wary of men in hats. However, not long after, Mr. Sweet showed up with his hair grown out and just as white and kinky and impenetrable as it ever was. Mr. Sweet used to call me his princess, and I believed it. He made me feel pretty at 5 and 6 and simply outrageously devastating at the blazing age of 8 and a half. When he came to our house with his guitar, the whole family would stop whatever they were doing to sit around him and listen to him play. He liked to play Sweet Georgia Brown and all sorts of sweet, sad, wonderful songs which he sometimes made up.